My wife cheated and wanted a break, so I became a man she couldn't have back. I just need some space. Those were the words that changed everything. They fell from her lips so casually, like she was asking for an extra pillow or a night out with friends. For 12 years, I had believed in us, in our life, our marriage, the home we built together. And now she wanted space. I should have seen the signs earlier. The distant looks at dinner, the late-night messages she never explained, the sudden obsession with looking her best even on days she had no plans. I ignored it, convincing myself it was just stress, just a phase. But deep down I knew. The final piece of the puzzle came in the form of a receipt, one she had carelessly left in her jacket pocket. A hotel stay 2 towns over on a night she had sworn she was at a work event. I stared at it, my hands shaking slightly, feeling something inside me crack. That night I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I let her kiss my cheek like nothing was wrong, watched her move around our home, pretending everything was fine. And when she finally sat down across from me at dinner, I asked, as casually as I could, "Are you happy?" She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Why do you ask?" I didn't push. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed to be absolutely sure before I shattered the illusion of our life together. So I did what I never thought I would do. I started paying attention. For the next 2 weeks, I watched. I listened. And the more I noticed, the clearer it became. The sudden need to keep her phone face down, the whispered calls in another room, the scent of cologne that wasn't mine when she walked through the door. She was careful, but not careful enough. Then came the night she said it. We sat at the dinner table, barely touching our plates, the silence stretching too long. She sighed, rubbing her temples, and then she looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite place. "I've been thinking a lot lately, and I feel like I need some space." It was almost laughable. She thought she was in control of the situation. That I would break down, beg her to stay, ask what I had done wrong. Maybe once upon a time I would have, but not anymore. "Space?" I repeated, tilting my head slightly. "What does that mean?" She looked relieved, like she had expected a fight and was glad I wasn't putting up one. "Just some time to think. To figure things out." I nodded slowly, pretending to consider it. "How long?" Her eyes darted away. "I don't know. A few weeks? Maybe longer?" I leaned back in my chair, exhaling through my nose. "And where do you plan on staying?" Another pause. I was thinking I could stay with a friend for a while. Not a friend. Him. The truth was so close to the surface I could almost taste it, but I kept my expression unreadable. "All right," I finally said. She blinked, caught off guard. "All right?" I nodded again. "If space is what you need, then take it." She had expected resistance. Pleading. Maybe even anger. What she didn't expect was indifference. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than betrayal or sadness. I felt power. That night, after she packed her things and left, I sat alone in our quiet house. But instead of drowning in self-pity, I pulled out my laptop. If she was getting what she wanted, then so was I. By morning, I had made 3 decisions. 1. I wasn't going to waste time trying to fix something that was already broken. 2. I was going to become a version of myself that didn't need anyone's validation. 3. When she realized what she had lost, I wouldn't be there to take her back. She wanted space? She could have it. But when she finally looked back, I'd be long gone. The first morning without her felt strange. Not painful, not heartbreaking, just different. The absence of her presence in the house was noticeable, but instead of feeling empty, it felt like something had shifted. Like the weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying had suddenly lifted. She wanted space, and she got it. But I wasn't going to waste my time waiting for her to decide whether I was worth keeping. I started my day the same way I always did: coffee, the news, getting ready for work. But everything felt sharper, clearer. I wasn't distracted by the texts she used to send in the mornings, the ones I now knew were just a habit, not a sign of real connection. I wasn't focused on whether she'd be home for dinner or making excuses for why she was stuck late at work. The silence in the house wasn't loneliness, it was freedom. At work, my colleagues noticed the difference. I wasn't moping, I wasn't distracted. I was focused, sharper than I had been in months. I took on new projects, engaged more in meetings, and for the first time in a long time, I actually enjoyed the challenge. I wasn't the guy whose wife had just left, I was just a man who had decided to move forward. That evening, instead of sitting in the house dwelling on what had happened, I went to the gym. I hadn't been consistent in years, always telling myself I was too busy, too tired. That excuse didn't fly anymore. I pushed myself harder than I had in a long time, and by the time I left, exhausted but energized, I realized something: I had spent too much time making excuses for myself, for her, for everything. That was over now. Days passed, then weeks. Every time I thought about reaching out to her, I stopped myself. She was the one who wanted space, so I wasn't going to be the one to bridge the gap. And as time went on, I realized I didn't even want to. I was rediscovering pieces of myself that I had let slip away over the years. The hobbies I had abandoned. The friends I had lost touch with. The ambitions I had put on hold for the sake of maintaining a relationship that, in hindsight, had been dying for a long time. Then, out of nowhere, she texted. A simple, casual message. "How are you doing?" I stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to even respond. In the past, I would have taken it as an invitation to start a conversation to fix things. Now, I saw it for what it was, a test. She wanted to see if I was still there, still waiting for her. I typed back, "Doing well. Hope you were too." Short, polite, distant. She responded within minutes. "I'm glad. It's been weird not talking." I didn't reply. That was the beginning of it. Over the next few days, the messages became more frequent. Small check-ins. Little attempts at conversation. I kept my responses brief, never engaging too much, and I could tell it was frustrating her. She had expected me to chase, to ask when she was coming home, to beg for an explanation. I gave her nothing. And then, one evening, she asked the question I had been expecting. "Can we meet up? Just to talk?" I let the message sit there for hours before responding. "I'm busy this week. Maybe another time." It was a lie. I wasn't busy, but I wasn't going to drop everything just because she had suddenly decided she wanted to talk. She had made her choice. Now I was making mine. Instead of spending my time wondering about her, I kept moving forward. I updated my wardrobe, bought clothes that actually fit well instead of the same worn-out things I had been wearing for years. I got a haircut, changed my routine, started going out more. And people noticed. Friends, coworkers, even strangers. One night, I went out for dinner with a few friends and was introduced to someone new. She was smart, funny, and easy to talk to. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't expected: interest. Not longing, not desperation. Just a simple curiosity about someone who wasn't tied to my past. And that's when I knew. I wasn't waiting for her anymore. I wasn't hoping she'd come back. I wasn't living in the past, replaying old memories, trying to figure out where things went wrong. She had asked for space. And I had given it to her. But what she hadn't realized was that in the process, I had found something much more valuable. Myself. Weeks turned into months, and the more time passed, the more distant she became, not just physically, but in my mind. I no longer thought about where she was or what she was doing. I no longer checked my phone, expecting her name to appear. I had moved on, not in the dramatic, revenge-fueled way you see in movies, but in a quiet, deliberate way that made all the difference. Then, just as I had fully settled into my new life, she showed up. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I had just finished a long run when my phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a call. I almost let it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" There was a pause, just long enough for me to know she had hesitated before calling. "Hey. I hope it's okay that I'm calling." I wiped sweat from my forehead, keeping my voice even. "What's up?" She exhaled like she had been holding her breath. "I was just wondering if we could meet. Just to talk. In person." I knew what this was. I had seen it coming. It was only a matter of time before she realized what she had given up. But what she didn't know was that the man she had left behind no longer existed. I took my time answering. "I don't know if that's a good idea." Her voice softened. "Please." Something in her tone made me pause. It wasn't just regret. It was something else. Against my better judgment, I agreed. "Fine. Tomorrow night." We met at a quiet cafe, the kind of place we used to go to when things were still good. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, fidgeting with the edge of her napkin. When she saw me, her eyes widened slightly. She wasn't expecting the change. The last time she saw me, I had been the same man she had taken for granted for years. Now, I was someone else entirely. "You look different," she said as I sat down. I smirked. "I feel different." She gave a small, nervous laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That's good. I guess. I just wanted to see you." I leaned back in my chair. "Why now?" She hesitated. "I've been thinking a lot. About us. About everything." She looked down, exhaling. I made a mistake. There it was. The words I had known were coming. But instead of the satisfaction I thought I'd feel, all I felt was indifference. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, you did." She flinched like she hadn't expected me to say it so easily. "I know. And I know I don't deserve anything from you after everything, but I just needed to tell you." She looked up, her eyes pleading. "I miss you. I let those words settle between us, but they didn't have the power they once would have. Why are you really here? I asked. She looked away. It didn't work out. Of course, it didn't. She continued, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I wanted something different. I thought I needed to find myself. But the truth is, I had everything I needed with you. I was just too blind to see it. For a brief second, I saw the woman I had once loved. The one I had built a life with. But the problem was that life was over. I sighed. You made your choice. You wanted space. And now you're realizing that space wasn't what you really needed. She swallowed. I was wrong. I studied her carefully. The old me would have given in, would have jumped at the chance to fix things. But that man was gone. I shook my head. I don't think you understand. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not hurt. But I'm also not the same guy who would have fought to keep you. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. We could try again. Start over. I smiled, but it wasn't the kind she wanted. No. We can't. She exhaled shakily. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. She looked like she wanted to argue, but deep down I think she knew. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't a game. She had lost me the moment she walked away. I stood up, leaving enough money on the table to cover my drink. Take care of yourself. And with that I walked away without hesitation, without regret. Because she was right about one thing. She had lost something good. But I hadn't lost anything at all. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.